been through this, over the years, and the lifespan of, whatever this is and where it's going to go, and it's a circle and it's a cycle and all that stuff. And, and I do notice that with the mental health thing, there seems to be a cycle with these hospitals, and they, when they shut down and when they close down, and then when they get absorbed back into the community, and most of them are they sit empty for a couple decades because it's tough to integrate them back in, because there's a great cost with demolishing these buildings. I remember it was $1 million a building up there if they did it right, and they got them in bulk and nobody had the money. And then the other issue is that they usually were so huge and the towns came around them, they usually occupy, I think Pennhurst occupies 3 townships when you break it up. Between the farm and everything else, it was originally in 3 townships. It was so big. These things were enormous. And, the fact that you want that one little house that's standing there, it just seems like a no-brainer. It just really does.
Well, it does also to me, because that house somehow needs to remain standing as a symbol, not just for Pennhurst, but for all the Pennhursts. And what as a society we did, maybe with some good intentions in the very beginning, we realized it was the wrong answer to the wrong question. And then it got starved financially by a century of state legislatures. And it's not just Pennsylvania. It's everywhere.
Right.
I can tell you the Belchertown in Massachusetts and the Mansfield in Connecticut and the Partlow in Alabama and the Willowbrook in New York. And we can go on and on. For those of us who have spent our life in this, we know where all the so-called skeletons and sometimes real skeletons are hidden.
When everybody does this, like Greg, is really passionate about it for the entire life, you're really passionate about it even now.
I am.
And passion is always, I've always had a lot of respect for passion. If somebody, whatever they do. I
don't care if you're a baseball player. Be passionate about it.
Yeah.
Care about what you do. My father always taught me, he says, I don't care if you're cleaning the toilet bowl. He says, think of it that you're signing your name on a work of art. There is no good enough. You do it right. And what we're trying to do now, my fellow board members and myself, is to have a chance to do it right this time. And that means make lives matter, whether someone has a disabling condition or not, whether someone is different than us or not, is make their lives matter, but matter in a way that's meaningful to them, not to the rest of us. And that, to me, would be making it right. And that's what our mission is.
And a lot of people that are in those places. When I worked at one for a couple of years, and a lot of people were guilty of nothing more than not being supported enough and being marginalized. It wasn't like everybody thinks that bad people are there or things of that nature. It was sometimes people were just marginalized. You saw them, and they didn't have. I met more than a few people, and this is. I know this is going to be used against me, but I met more than a few people there that I thought were more sane than I was. They just had a different coping mechanism, and it didn't work.
I have a favorite story.
Please.
Do you remember Byberry?
I do.
Okay. Byberry was the equivalent of Norristown State Hospital. It was a very large congregate institution inside the city limits of Philadelphia. And I had to go to a meeting there once, and we were lost. And so we asked someone on the grounds where the et cetera was and how to find where we were going, and learned afterwards he was one of the patients. Would you ask him for? Turned out he knew more than we used to joke that one of the ways you knew the difference between those that were patients and those that were staff was who was wearing the keys.
Yeah. You look for keys and lanyards because sometimes that's the only way to tell.
I don't want to trivialize it because people's lives were affected by these places and not always in good ways. We know better. Now that we do, we ought not to do this anymore and end it for everyone as quickly as possible. Pennsylvania still has 4 institutions left for less than 1,000 people. And the last place that closed, Hamburg State School and Hospital, this year, the average cost to the taxpayer for each person was $466,000 a year. As a taxpayer, we should all be outraged. Even if it worked, we should be outraged. But it doesn't work. It's cheaper and better to make people's lives meaningful in the communities they came from. And here we are, and we still have 4 of these places left. I used to kid, but not kid. I had a standing offer. $466,000 a piece, I'll take 2 home. I'll put them in the penthouse at the best hotel in downtown Philadelphia with 24/7 staff and room service, and I'll be out playing golf. This is insane, and it's wrong.
Interesting choice of words.
Well, I guess it is when I reflect on it.
Thank you very much, Ed.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Sure. Anytime. Well, we're done, Russell.
Okay.